What if the biggest threat to your crypto portfolio isn't a market crash, a smart contract exploit, or a whale dumping on you? What if the end date for the Wild West era of digital assets is already set in European law and the countdown hits zero in less than 1 week? The noise from the eternal optimists is pure coping. Commentators and defenders of offshore exchanges are telling you, don't worry about the rules. Crypto is decentralized. If the European Union introduces some regulations, liquidity will just find a way around them. Web3 isn't limited by borders, and a few compliance forms won't stop the bull run. They want you to believe the global liquidity pool can ignore a regulator's pen. But the signal, the harsh reality and major change happening behind the scenes, reveals a severe threat. On July 1st, 2026, the European Union's Markets in Crypto Assets Regulation, or MiCA, comes fully into effect. The transition windows are closing and the grace periods are ending. This isn't a slow change, this is a legal disaster. For over 90% of the crypto platforms currently operating in the Eurozone, they will either have to block European citizens, freeze non-compliant stablecoin pairs, or face hefty penalties. I'm Newell. Welcome back to the Signal and Noise podcast. Before we dive into the destruction of Europe's crypto infrastructure, take a moment to like and subscribe to protect your investments from mainstream media's blind spots. Today, we will look at the harsh reality for the 1,200 platforms hitting a legal wall, track the billions migrating from USDT to compliant alternatives, and answer the big question: is this the end of crypto sovereignty or the painful start of an elite, institutional financial system? Let's get started. Let's skip the philosophical debates and focus on the hard numbers from the European Securities and Markets Authority register. For the past 18 months, crypto platforms have operated under a misleading assumption. They believed national registrations would let them delay true compliance indefinitely. But now MiCA's reality has hit and the numbers are shocking. Before MiCA's transition period began, there were over 1,200 crypto asset companies legally operating in the EU under different national frameworks. Now, just days away from the July 1st deadline, only about 200 of those have managed to get full, unrestricted MiCA authorization. That is a survival rate of less than 18%. This means around 80% to 90% of the digital asset exchanges, custodial wallet providers, and brokerage setups are either packing up or will soon be illegal. To operate in the 27-nation bloc, there are no extensions. Look at the big players. Global leaders like MEXC and HTX don't have a MiCA license for the European market. Binance's future under the full regulatory framework remains uncertain. Even platforms like KuCoin, which have tried to secure specialized licenses, face bans on customer acquisition due to serious failures in anti-money laundering and transaction monitoring. For years, offshore exchanges thought they could avoid regulations by using reverse solicitation, claiming European users found their sites on their own. MiCA makes this completely illegal. It explicitly prohibits licensed EU entities from outsourcing core services, such as custody, to unauthorized firms from outside the EU. The game has changed. If an exchange hasn't invested millions in establishing a legal EU branch, implementing continuous transaction monitoring, and building strong anti-money laundering systems, it must create a formal shutdown plan by July 1st or face asset seizures and corporate liquidation. Now let's discuss the secondary and possibly more dangerous aspect of MiCA, the rules for stablecoins. This is where the regulation impacts the very foundation of the decentralized finance ecosystem. Tether's USDT is the lifeblood of global crypto liquidity, fueling trillions of dollars in trading volume. But under MiCA's requirements for asset reference tokens, USDT simply doesn't comply. It lacks the EU's strict standards for liquid cash reserves, banking oversight, and local governance. Because of this legal barrier, every authorized exchange in Europe is being forced to act. To keep their licenses, they are systematically cutting USDT trading pairs or completely blocking access for European users. Millions of retail and institutional users across the continent are being pushed to liquidate their USDT holdings and shift their capital to compliant options like USDC or euro-denominated stablecoins. What we're witnessing is a forced division of global capital. For a decade, $1 in crypto was represented by USDT. Now Europe is creating a regulated currency barrier. This forced shift doesn't just create administrative challenges, it disrupts local liquidity pools. increases costs for retail traders, and raises the operational cost of moving money across borders. The state realized it couldn't stop Bitcoin, so it targeted the settlement systems. By pushing all of Europe away from USDT and towards heavily regulated, bank-supervised alternatives, they have essentially controlled the entry and exit points of the parallel digital economy. This leads us to the main debate happening among developers and corporate crypto leaders this week: the misconception of DeFi immunity. For a long time, decentralized finance protocols, automated market makers, and Web3 game studios thought they were completely shielded from traditional regulations. They believed that because their functions were written in open-source smart contracts, a centralized regulation like MiCA couldn't reach them. But the European Securities and Markets Authority just delivered a sharp wake-up call to Web3 developers. Regulators are looking past the branding and applying a strict substance-over-form approach. If a decentralized application has a centralized interface, identifiable foundation, governance token structure, or takes fees that return to a known team, it will be classified as a crypto asset service provider. Under the Related Transfer of Funds regulation, every authorized platform must comply with the full FATF travel rule. This means they must collect, verify, and transmit authenticated information for every single crypto transfer. The anonymous peer-to-peer transaction system inside the institutional boundary is finished. If you are a developer or project founder outside the EU, you have only two options come July 1st. Spend hundreds of thousands on European compliance, legal advice, and transaction monitoring, or block access to your application from the entire European continent. The long-tail speculative market for Web3 tokens is facing an unprecedented halt. The corporate systems moving capital won't connect with protocols that fail the MiCA compliance check. Let's summarize the key conclusions from the July 1st MiCA implementation. The noise. This marks a permanent end to crypto in Europe. It represents an authoritarian overreach that will leave European citizens economically isolated while the global crypto market moves on without them. The signal. This is the painful, necessary end of speculative, unregulated retail crypto and the formal rise of an institutional digital asset class. By closing loopholes and establishing a standard framework across 27 nations, Europe isn't trying to eliminate digital ledger technology. They are clearing out unverified, non-compliant elements to create an elite, corporate-friendly environment. Traditional banks, major asset managers, and strong institutional players have been waiting for this moment, a clear and compliant legal framework. So, what should you do in this new regulatory landscape? First, stop assuming your favorite mid-cap or low-cap exchange will survive without an EU license. Check their regulatory status now. If they aren't on the verified list of authorized providers, withdraw your funds from their platform before the July 1st deadline catches you off guard. Second, adjust your asset exposure to align with the compliant leaders of this regulatory filter. Capital will flow towards well-backed, compliant stablecoins and the select few Tier 1 protocols that have the necessary corporate infrastructure to pass the institutional filter. The era of lazy, Wild West crypto speculation is over. The era of sovereign, institutionalized ledger dominance is fully live. Understand the plumbing, or remain the liquidity. Stay sharp. Stay focused. That's it for this high-stakes regulatory edition of the Signal and Noise podcast. Make sure you smash that like and subscribe button before you step off the block. Track the regulatory tape, insulate your capital from the structural fallout, and we'll see you on the next block.